Hi there, I'm Dustin Warnke and welcome to this exciting edition of Gun Tales. Today we're going to be talking about something that I've been wanting to do a segment on for a long time, and that is the Mosin Nagant 7.62x54 rim chambered rifle. Now this is a 9130 version that I have in front of me. This is the 1943 model. This particular design was first invented and put into service in the late 1800s, actually 1891, which is where the 91 part comes from, and then redesigned for World War II in the beginning of the 1930s. That's where the 9130 part comes from. Also brought to the table today two other variants of the Mosin Nagant, and then a Sporterized version that's built specifically for hunting. And I'll go over some of the basics and variances in that regard as well. You've got the M38, which came after the Mosin Nagant, which is basically the shortened version of the 9130. And then you have the M44, which is the Mosin Nagant carbine shortened version, which has a detachable bayonet. And are actually a bayonet that's integrated into the stock and into the barrel itself. And we'll go over those two as well. But those are going to be the three main variants that you find: the 9130, the M38, and then the M44. 9130s typically are the most commonly found on the market today. The M38 and M44 are not so much anymore because surplus has come, and dealers and manufacturers have been selling them and kind of rebranding them as hunting rifles because they're shorter and a little bit less cumbersome than the 31-inch barrel that this particular gun has. But I still hunt with this, I've still shot animals with this, and it's a fantastic gun. This particular gun is going to shoot the 7.62x54 rimmed cartridge, and there's two types of ammunition you're going to find out there, and the ammunition's readily available. You just need to know where to look for it. You can go to ammunition websites and purchase it from there, but you can also go to gun shows and find fantastic deals on what we call spam cans, which are big oval, I guess rectangular looking cans that have little paper bags in them like this. And this particular paper bag has got 20 rounds inside each one, and they're typically all in the same configuration. You can look at the back of the head stamp and see the year that it was made at the bottom of the head stamp, and then the top of it's the Arsenal manufacturer. If you care, you can look that up. Several different manufacturers have made these surplus military grade ammunition, and they still exist on the market today. You can buy a big old spam can of 440 rounds or different variances of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds in a big spam can. So you have that, and you also have the Silver Bear, which is one of my favorite brands of foreign ammunition that you can purchase. And this is clean, commercial, non-corrosive ammunition. I use this particular ammunition for hunting. That is the 7.62x54 rim, 203 grain bimetal soft point. This particular one has a zinc-plated case. I just like the silver-looking cases. I just think they look cool, but you know, they also make brown bear and gold bear and other different varieties in that regard for whatever you want to shoot. But 203 grain bullet, and this is a particular round that's kind of been, a lot of folks don't know a lot about this round, but if you look at it ballistically, it's going to fall anywhere between the 308 and the 30-06, which is going to be fantastic for anything that walks in North America. And I've personally used this particular round and this particular setup with a 203 grain bullet with fantastic results. It's almost overkill, but it will get the job done. What a lot of folks have done is even gone through and loaded some coyote and predator and smaller game loads into a 125 grain bullet. You can certainly do that. You're not destined to only do whatever is available commercially and the military surplus market has. You can do your own thing with these rifles and with these ammunition reloading manuals, because reloading kits are existing for this, and you can easily get those and buy those and sit there and load your own ammunition if you like. I just get the best accuracy out of the 203 grain Silver Bear soft points. You can get these readily available on the internet. Gun shows typically have these as well. Just about any gun show ammunition dealer will have these. Now, you can also find stripper clips, which are just basically little square looking things that all 5 rounds fit into, and that'll fit into this little channel here on the barrel. You can, for faster reloading, you can do that, especially if you're at the range. It's cool to load these up before you go to the range with whatever you're going to be shooting. Stick them in there, push these down, and they go into the magazine. The magazine itself is going to hold 5 rounds. There are some prototypes on the market today for for manufacturing bigger 10-round high-capacity magazines for this rifle, but the 5-rounder is perfect. It comes with the gun already. And last gun that I saw at a recent gun show a couple of weeks ago ran for about $125. That's without the scope and without the scope mount that I have on here, which I'll talk about in just a minute. Now, that all being said, I have a high score black rifle rest here, which is one of our fine sponsors, as well as Devtron Scope Coat scope protector on my scope as well. So I'm going to take that off and kind of show you how I've got this set up for hunting and target shooting, and I do both with this gun on a regular basis. If I can get that off. This is just a normal generic 4x32 fixed power pistol scope that I have on here, and this particular setup that I have on here is called a scout mount setup. And the scout mount setup basically just mounts on the rear sight leaf block, which is, you can find a couple of different manufacturers for the rear sight leaf block. But let me warn you, one thing you will find is normally it looks like a big giant rail that's just milled, and it's about $25 or so. You can find these on eBay and that kind of stuff. That's just really cheap aluminum, and chances are that the screws you're going to put in the sight leaf holes are going to strip out. So stay away from that. I've gone through a few of those in my own time and learned how to buy quality when it comes to getting a scout mount. So this particular scout mount is about $75. It's from a guy on the internet named Daryl's Scout Mounts. If you just Google keyword Daryl's, you can still find him. He should still be in business. Also, S&K Scout Mounts is another one that makes these readily on a commercial availability. And you can find other companies out there, but buy quality whenever you're going to buy a scout mount like this. And then I have just a standard pistol scope on here as well. It's a 4-power. Also, whenever you buy a pistol scope or long eye relief or scout scope, buy single power, buy fixed power, because if you buy variable power, which I've had the experience of having a 2 to 7 variable power where you can switch the scopes here, switch the scope power rather, variable from 2 to 7 power on a 32-inch millimeter round scope, you basically can sometimes hit that scope, and what I did is accidentally blew the parallax square out of it, and it was not usable anymore. It would not hold a 0. And so the rule that I've heard from everybody is you don't necessarily have to put the highest quality scope on a Mosin Nagant. A pistol scope will be fine in this setup, but you need to have, because it's built for the recoil, but you need to get a fixed power, and 4 power is probably all you need for a hunting setup with this gun. And we'll talk about some other options for guns that are sporterized later in this segment. But for now, that's what this is. Now, this is about a $100 gun when I purchased it. You can find these used gun shows for between $100 and you can find these between $100 and maybe $125 pretty easily. The one that I saw in the same configuration, same year of 1943, you know, pay about $125 for it. The gun show I was just at the other day. So that being said, a couple of things to look for. You want to try to make sure that the bolt matches the butt plate and matches the barrel receiver as well as the magazine plate. There's a serial number that's going to be 4 digits or longer on each one of those, and you're going to want to check to see whether or not each one of those matches. If it doesn't match, it's not the end of the world. And another thing that was done by the Russians is force matching, and that means you can sit there, they would cross out the original number when they would change out parts on rifles because something broke or got lost or for whatever reason back in the World War II days, and cross that out, and they just electro-pencil in a new number on top of it. As long as everything matches, that's usually a good sign. Another thing, just like in any other rifle that you purchase, you want to check head spacing if you can. Get you a set of head space gauges. It's not that important when you purchase the gun, but it's good to take it to a gunsmith after you buy it to get the head space checked professionally if you do not have an actual gunsmith with you or accessible gunsmith when you're purchasing this rifle. And that all being said, you also want to check to see if the gun's been re-arsenaled. And this is relatively easy to see. One of the ways you can look at that is whether or not you've got a box with a slash drawn through it, and I'm showing you a close-up of that right now. This is on another gun that I have. This one I sanded the stock down very lightly, and that particular marking and stamp is gone. But on some of the parts, you'll also see some of the box with the little diagonal slash through this little square box. That means that it's been re-arsenaled. And all that means is back during World War II, things were kind of tough. This particular year of manufacturing, a lot was going on in 1943, as you can imagine, with the Russians and the Germans in the Eastern European War. So what was happening is a lot of these guns were being put into service and basically re-arsenaled and put away. And re-arsenaled just means basically reconditioned. It's not the end of the world. That's actually actually a very, very good thing, because what you can do is take this particular rifle, and it basically made it usable again, cleaned up any of the issues that they have. They'd put a new crown on it in some cases. They'd counterbore, and that just means that they would drill out if it had cleaning barrel damage or cleaning wear damage by using a steel cleaning rod. They just put a new crown on it and bore out the first couple of inches into a smooth bore fashion. And the way that you can tell that a gun's been counterbored is by sticking a rifle bullet into, and you don't need to worry, it's not a safety issue. You're going to be just inserting the actual bullet into the gun. If it does not sink all the way down to the neck of the bullet, you're in good shape. But you need to use a 7.62x54 round, live round. It doesn't really matter in that regard. Just let people know what you're doing, because it kind of looks weird when you're sticking a bullet inside of a rifle muzzle like this. But if it's this gun has not been counterbored, I'm just sticking that inside of the rifle bullet, inside of the beginning of the muzzle. And my 9130, I'm sorry, my M44 and M38s, though, both have been counterbored, and they'll sink all the way down to the neck of the rifle. That does not necessarily mean anything bad. If nothing else, that means it's going to be a better chance for inherent accuracy, because you've got you know, that crowning done, and then you've got pretty strong rifling throughout. Another thing you'll discover with a lot of these guns, especially non-reconditioned guns, the guns that have not been re-arsenaled, is that you'll find kind of darkish bores. These guns have been road hard and put up wet in a lot of cases, especially the carbine versions, the M38 and the M44s. They've been road hard and put up wet in a lot of cases. So you'll find kind of a dark bore, or you'll find kind of a frosted bore is another way to look at it. Get a bore light and look down there. As long as you've got decent lands and grooves, as long as it does not look like a smooth bore shotgun, you'll be in good shape. I had a Turkish Mauser that almost looked like that. It had been shot in just wear and tear and corrosive ammunition for so many years. It looked like the barrels and the barrel just had just a smooth bore look to it, and did not have a very strong rifling to it. So that's an issue you need to look for sure. This particular gun, again, may have even had a new barrel put on it in 1943 when it was re-arsenaled, but it's going to have the stamp of the year on there, and you want to check again the bolt, the butt plate, the magazine plate, and then the barreled receiver, the action area right by the breech as well, for matching numbers. And if not, it's not the end of the world. You can still find parts for these guns, because there was millions and millions and millions of these made. So that's a very, very good case like that. Okay, back to ammunition real quick. We've got commercial manufacturers like Wolf and Silver Bear that are going to be making this ammunition readily available. You'll be in good shape there. If you shoot military surplus ammunition, you've got to clean your rifle properly, and the main issues to consider are the crown, the inside of the barrel, as well as the, I'll pull this off and show you this, the front of the bolt, okay, the bolt face. All right, this is where the firing pin comes out. Whenever you shoot military surplus ammunition, you're going to want to be aware that there are going to be corrosive primers, and they do this because of the shelf life of the ammunition. You get longer shelf life if you end up shooting corrosive primers, and it's not necessarily that they're wanting to hurt a firearm, it's just that they last longer. And for whatever reason, commercial ammunition, because it's not favorable to have to clean your gun a certain way every time, does not use corrosive primers for that reason, just because it's not favorable to most shooters. But the nice thing about this kind of ammunition, you can find it for about $5 or $6 for a box of this, and a box of the hunting soft point ammunition is about $10 a box, maybe a little bit more, give or take where you go. But this is very, very inexpensive to get, and very inexpensive to target shoot all day long for, you know, compared to any other rifle out there that's high powered like this. You can buy a whole spam can of that ammunition and just sit there and just shoot at the range all day long, and your shoulder may hurt, but you will have a fun time, and it's very inexpensive to shoot. So here's what you need to remember. What I brought along today is a one-piece cleaning rod. This is my little coated cleaning rod that I have here, and you have some ammonia. This is 50-50 mixed ammonia and water. It's kind of a milky substance. Most people know what household ammonia is. You can also use Windex with ammonia. You could also use even just a patch of real hot water down there, even though that sounds really weird. You don't clean a gun with water. But in this case, what you're trying to do is cover the bolt face and run a patch through the barrel and hit the crown as well. Anything that primer has touched, you want to clean and neutralize those corrosive salts. That's very, very important, okay? So always take the bolt out, run a patch down there of just this ammonia, 50-50 water and ammonia, and straight ammonia, and run a patch down there. Do it outside because it stinks. You're going to get put outside if not. And run it down there, run it back, then clean your gun as normal. You don't need to do anything else after that. You just need to neutralize the corrosive salts. But I've run into situations with guns where corrosive salts have been there in place and people have not known that, and I've run into some rust bucket guns that their value has just been ruined for years and years from that regard. So make sure when you clean your gun, do that first. If you're going to shoot military surplus ammunition. If you're going to shoot just regular old-fashioned Silver Bear Wolf or any of the other Monarch or any of the other brands out there in the market, you're going to be in good shape. Just clean your gun as normal in that regard. Now, as we've talked about before, the Mosin Nagant has had extensive military service. In fact, it's still in use today in some third world countries, and several different variants of it still exist in the world. There were millions of them made. A lot of folks have said a lot of things about them and pros and cons of how they are compared to all the other different World War II era rifles, and all that can be said, but really the thing I love about this gun and what I've always loved about it is the fact that it has such utility to it. It's a very simple design, and that's definitely the case here with the M44 that I brought to you today. This is set in a laminate stock. It is a very, very nice looking gun. This is actually a M44 original stock that my M38 used to be in, and redid the stock and just some general, did a little varnish coat on it, but nothing to really upset the collectible value of it down the road. And one reason why I use these scout mounts here in the rear sight block is because I believe very much so that preserving the collectability and the legacy of these rifles is important. Even though there were millions of them made, you can look back and look at the history of Springfield or any of these other kind of old rifles that were sporterized so much and drilled and tapped on the receiver, and they've lost their collectible value. So companies like S&K, Darrell Scout Mounts, and other folks like that have made these kind of sight block leaf setups, and this one is an S&K setup, and it basically mounts directly on the little 3/8 inch dovetail rail that goes on the Mosin Nagant here. So you actually strip off the entire sight block, and there's a little nice 3/8 inch dovetail rail on doing there. Several videos on how to install these scopes. It does not take long. You do not need a gunsmith to do it. S&K and Darrell mounts are going to cost about, I don't know, 70 bucks or so. If you look at the rifle costing you about $100 to $125, you're still well underneath the cost of buying a brand new commercial rifle without a scope. So that's in good shape. And again, this is just a regular, inexpensive 4x32 fixed pistol scope. You're going to want to use a long eye relief scope, even though I have seen people use standard scopes. The one thing you've got to worry about that the Scout mount helps you with is not having to bend the bolt here, and that's very important in that regard here. All right. This has the integral bayonet, which came out after the M38, and that just attaches like this up here. Of course, they did this a lot faster back in the day. Just like this, you got a very long bayonet. Now, a lot of folks for hunting have sawed that off or ground that bayonet lug down and taken that bayonet off completely. Again, I subscribe to the theory that I believe in the nice collectability of these, but also that they can be pressed in military hunting service, or military service or hunting service, again, very, very easily. And they are used in military service in this standard configuration like this. But for hunting, I just think that thing looks cool, okay? I'm not going to take it out there and gore an animal with it, but it certainly is a discussion piece at the gun range, because the thing about these small carbines with a shorter barrel is it doesn't burn up as much of the gunpowder like the long 9130 does. This is a whole lot easier to handle in the field. You've got approximately about a 20-inch barrel, where the Mosin Nagant 9130, you got a 31-inch barrel, and I just leave the bayonet on there. These are actually sighted in with the standard sight leafs that they normally come with when you buy these bone stock. They're going to have the sight leaf on there sighted in for using the bayonet. So I never use the bayonet when I go hunting, obviously. When I'm at the gun range, it kind of looks cool to extend one if you're just going to be target practicing, and it'll shoot differently because barrel harmonics are always changed anytime you attach anything to the barrel. So I've got a sight-in point with where this gun hits with the barrel without the bayonet, and then with the bayonet as well. So this is a beautiful piece. I love this gun. I personally have hunted with it. I've taken hogs, I've taken deer, so on and so forth with this gun. And it's funny, with the next gun I'm going to show you a little bit later, the 9130 that I've sporterized, everybody was kind of laughing at me going, oh, well, geez, you know, when I went to a deer camp one time, that I've never seen a gun like this, you know, is that thing going to actually kill anything? It's an old World War II thing. And I said, keep talking, and then I shot a really nice 8-point buck the next morning, and all of a sudden, all hands off on Dustin and his weird military guns. So fairly common. The M44 and M38 you're going to find are going to be more of a rifle that's going to be a little bit rarer and a little bit more expensive because these imported so hardcore for such a long time, and they got picked up by so many different hunters and people that liked the carbine version of it like this. I still got this for about $100, but that's been a few years ago. And I have a reproduction, Chinese-made Mosin Nagant, what they call dog collar sling. You can get that also with a kit. If you get you'll have a little headspace gauge. You'll have a firing pin protrusion. Not headspace gauge, I should say. It's a firing pin protrusion tool to check where your firing pin lines up on the back of the bolt. And there are videos out there to show you how to do that. But you'll also have a little ammunition set up like this, which is really nice. Holds stripper clips of ammunitions, 2 in each one of the pouches like this, and that's kind of cool to have, I think. So that's a lot of fun. It's a great thing to take to the range and shoot, very inexpensive to shoot, and very inexpensive to own as well, because the upkeep and the simplicity of this rifle is the fact that you can sit there and shoot it and it takes a licking and keeps on ticking. And again, another word about surplus ammunition versus commercial ammunition. A lot of gun riders out there have said, you know what, it's not a good idea to have shoot any kind of military surplus ammunition. When it's quality military surplus ammunition that's sold by reputable dealers, unlike I dealt with some Turkish Mauser ammunition years ago, and it had cracked and split heads and cases and that kind of stuff because it was from the World War II era, 1940s. That's kind of a different animal. This is probably 50s. This is actually 1976 produced. It's higher quality stuff, and these guns are built to take this military balls type of ammunition. So don't worry so much about shooting that. Just make sure, again, you clean your rifles correctly with the ammonia or some kind of way to neutralize those corrosive salts when you shoot military ammunition. I cannot stress that enough. So that is the M44, and next we're going to move to the M38. All right, the M38. I showed you the M44 because we're kind of moving from original to more of some fancier, customized options that you can do. And the next gun I'm going to show you is going to be my 9130 that I purchased already customized. This particular gun I purchased for about $100 the same time I got my 9130, and it was in an original wood stock that you actually saw on the M44 I just featured. And basically, this gun, I did a little bit of customization, but it's nothing that's permanent, and it's nothing that cannot be changed back to stock original form in about 5 or 10 minutes. All I did is replace the stock, took the handguard off, and then I put a nice ATI stock. They make these in camo or synthetic black like this. And then I put a little rifle band, ammunition band on here to hold my 7.62 by 54 rim Silver Bear 203 grain soft points. And ready to go. This is a real true scout rifle setup. It's a short barrel, it's not been cut down, and I'm going to say, whenever you get into any kind of surplus ammunition and surplus rifles like this, mainly ones that have been chopped and cropped and totally, you know, sporterized, you've got to be careful on. One that's been done nicely like this, and this is my own little creation that I did. It's not that hard of a deal to do that, so don't worry so much about that. All you want to do is basically just look for the same kind of things that I had mentioned earlier. You want to look at the crown, you want to look at the rifling. This particular rifle's got a little bit of a frosty bore because, again, a lot of these were used hard and put up wet and not cleaned properly, but it's still a good shooter. It can still get an inch, 2 inches at 100 yards with the scout scope on it as well. I have the same setup with Darrell Scout mount on here. I've got a nice scope, you know, a regular pistol scope like I've had on my other ones that I've shown you, and this is just kind of the third in the generation. But I wanted to kind of make this more of a hunting rifle, and again, with this gun I've taken pigs and deer and so on and so forth as well. Everything matches on this gun as well. It's a good deal in that regard, and it's got even a butt plate because these things will kick like a mule, especially the carbine versions of these. Shorter barrel, less powder to burn. You're going to even get a nice little fireball, especially if you shoot these near the early morning or late evening when the light is kind of dark. Is not that good. You'll actually see this big explosion come out of the front of the of the barrel, and that's normal. That's just the way that the cartridge was designed to fire out of that big giant gun, and this is just kind of the short barrel rifle version of that gun and the carbine version. So it's kind of cool. I joke around and call these shorter carbines, the M38 and the M44, boomsticks, because they go boom and it sounds like a cannon, and everybody at the range is kind of like, what's he shooting over there? And it's kind of fun. I love them, so I really do like this. And these also will kick like a mule. I'll use a personal, like a recoil pad that attaches to my shoulder in addition to the pad that comes on here, especially if you're shooting steel butt plate like these, the previous versions that I showed you that are still in military configuration for the most part. That's going to hurt your shoulder, and you're going to also develop some kind of flinch or you know, some kind of adversity to not wanting to pull the trigger correctly sometimes if you're not used to the recoil. Another thing that you can use is the high score deluxe precision shooting rest that fires remotely, and if you want to get these sighted in on target and not have to take the brunt of the recoil, that's a perfect rest to use, and that's used by my friends at High Score as well. So that is the M38. The last gun we're going to talk about today is my customized 9130 that's been sporterized, and this is a gun you might run into, and if you do, it's a serious consideration, especially if you're a big hunter like we are on this show. So basically, you're going to have the 31-inch standard barrel. This particular gun had the sight leaf removed off of it. It's a 1943, very similar to my other military style with the scout scope on it, 9130. And it's got a standard bolt bending kit as well as a standard rail and standard scope attached to it. And you can find these kits for around $30 to $40. ATI makes the stocks. ATI also makes the bolt kit.